Hello everyone and welcome to today's lecture. So today, as you know, we discussed in the last lecture that we will be covering the peer review topic. Okay, so I will be covering the peer review topic. Now, just to tell you, there was peer review, given guidelines. So now there is a peer review guidelines 2022, which has newly came. There are some changes in the peer review process. I will be discussing those changes compared to the earlier methodology for the peer review. Okay, I will be highlighting where there are amendments compared to last time, and we will be discussing in detail. Earlier there was a peer review statement. Now there is a peer review guidelines. So we will be comparing both at places where there is new addition and where there is new change. Okay, so very important lecture. At any point in time, if you guys have any doubt, please feel free to ask through the app, through the portal. That will be very helpful for yourself also, because the more you will ask, the more you will understand the topic. Okay. Now, to start with, like first, as I do for each and every topic, I explain from where these particular things are coming, this particular requirement or this particular provision. In this case, when I talk about peer review, as I said, there's been a change. Now, peer review guidelines has been issued. Just a minute. So now the peer review guidelines has been issued, wherein in the guidelines, each and every detail about the process has been specified. Now these guidelines are issued in 2022. Okay. Now these are the guidelines laid by the Council of ICAI. And it becomes mandatory for everyone. Okay. And when they will come into effect, they will be with effect from 1st October 2022. So the effective date for them is 1st October 2022. So they will be effective from 1st October and it will be applicable to all. Okay. Now, when I talk about peer review guidelines, there are few changes. We will carry on throughout the whole lecture. But the thing is, the essence of the peer review is still same. There is no change in the essence of the peer review that was earlier present. So today, it's not something like, you are doing why earlier you were doing X in the peer review. No, the methodology bit has changed. The way of doing it has changed, but the essence of the peer review is still same. When I say essence, okay, what do you mean by essence means? I'll explain. The term peer review, okay, the term peer review and the objectives of the peer review are pretty much same. There is a slight difference, but they are pretty much same. Okay. So when I say peer review, what do you mean by what I mean by peer review? Peer review is examination and review of the systems and procedures. Okay, it's an examination of a systems that the system has placed by the practice unit. So I will be using the word practice unit a lot. That is a you can say firm or CA firm or member in practice that is applying for peer review in our case. Okay, who wants to get his firm or his firm or his practice is under peer review. Okay, so he will be the practice unit in our case. Okay, so peer review means examination and review of the systems and procedure to determine whether the same have been placed, okay, by the practice unit to ensure the quality of the assurance service is met. When I say quality of assurance service, which type of quality I'm talking about? Quality that is provided or mentioned in technical, professional, ethical, or audit quality maturity model. So the quality that is of assurance service that is enumerated or and is contained in these standards is met or not. That is something the purpose of peer review. So again, peer review is examination and review, okay, of what? Of systems and procedures to determine the same they are in place. So I want to determine whether they are in place. Okay. Now, for a practice unit, I'll determine whether they are in place or not. But what is the purpose of these systems and procedures? So the purpose of system and procedure is for ensuring the quality of assurance service okay, is present as envisaged, or you can say as enumerated, or basically when I say the term envisaged, which is used in the peer review guidelines, okay, that somewhere denotes that that it is expected, or that is from those particular standards, like what is expected by those particular standards in terms of the quality of assurance service contemplated in case of in case of assurance services. So that is something prescribed in those standards. Basically, the quality that is prescribed in those standards for the assurance services, whether that is met or not. So again, examining and reviewing systems and procedures to determine whether they are in place for assuring the quality of assurance services, and where it is there, like from what kind of quality assurance services. So when I talk about quality, the term quality means as envisaged by technical, professional, and ethical standards, okay, as applicable but there is some new change, something new came up, that is including audit quality maturity model. Okay, so this is something that has been newly added, audit quality maturity model, which was earlier not there. Now it has been issued by the council, wherein a maturity model has been came out, issued for the firms or for the practice unit to assess where their audit quality is standing, so they can rate their audit quality in scores based on a model. Okay, and I'll show you that model also, but as of now understand that's a model, scoring based, which is there. Okay, so as envisaged by the technical, professional, ethical, and applicable, uh, you know uh, standards as applicable, including audit quality maturity model. Okay, or or any other regulatory requirement. Any other regulatory requirement. So these are the things under which I need to see the quality, based on which I need to see the quality. Okay, this whole peer review examination of these things will be for the period of peer review. So I'll check that for the peer review samples, for the peer review period, this has been followed or not. So this will be verified under, or this will be examined under for the period under review. Okay, that's the peer review. Any doubt with respect to peer review only? I'll come on the rest of the points, to whom it is applicable, how it is applicable, what is the procedures. I'll come on that. But this is basic peer review. Any doubt with respect to that? Okay. Now, there are two things we need to understand over here. Number one, assurance services. Number two, technical, professional, and ethical standards. Okay. So we need to understand technical, professional, and ethical standards, and we need to understand assurance services or assurance engagement, basically. Now, technical, professional, or ethical standards. I'll take it first, that one. Okay. So, technical, professional, and ethical standard. If you see this particular one, the definition that is provided for this particular standard, for this particular term, okay, in clause 2, subclause 23 of the regulation. Of the regulation, it says that technical, professional, ethical standard will include our accounting standard, issued by ICAI, and applicable and applicable for entities other than companies. So non-corporate entities, basically. Then accounting standards prescribed under Section 133 of the Companies Act. Okay. Companies Act by the central government based on the recommendation of ICI in consultation with and an examination of the recommendations made by NAFRA. So I'll write in short that accounting standards under 133. Then Ind AS again under 133. Then standards issued by ICAI, including my engagement and quality control standards. Okay. Statements, whichever statements are being issued. Then guidance notes. Then standards on internal audit. Then my guidelines, notification, directions. Announcements, pronouncements, professional standards issued from time to time. So announcements and pronouncements. So then framework for the preparation and presentation of financial statements. So framework for preparation and presentation of financial statement. Preface to standard on quality control, auditing and review and other assurance and related services, and framework for assurance engagement. So preface to the standards on quality control. Okay. Then framework for assurance engagement. Provision of any relevant statute or law that is applicable. Provision of any relevant statute or rules, regulations which are applicable in the context of that particular specific engagement. Okay. That is being reviewed, including instructions, guidelines, notification, directions issued by the regulatory bodies as covered in the scope of that particular engagement. So, for example, if I'm checking an engagement in the peer review pertaining to NBFC, then the guidelines issued for the NBFCs, notification issued for the NBFCs, that will become technical, professional, and ethical standards. And any other TP or technical, professional, ethical standard issued by any government governing authority. So any other TPE standards. When I call TPE, that is technical, professional, and ethical standard. Okay. See, I will be using a lot of short forms over here, but please do not use these things in the exam. I'm just writing it here just to explain you so that I can write it in a concise place and in a concise manner that is easy for your understanding. But in exams, please don't do that. So this was my technical, professional, and ethical standards definition under clause 2, subclause 23. Any doubt? NFRA, National Financial Reporting Authority, they are under Companies Act. Authority has been formed under the Companies Act. I think you guys will be hearing more for that particular in the corporate laws subject for NFRA. Okay. So this was technical, professional, and ethical standard, which is there under peer review that we need to see. And now I'll talk about one more thing, my assurance engagement. Okay, or assurance services. So the term assurance engagement, okay, or assurance services will be interchangeably used at audit services, attestation functions, or audit functions, but they are same. So my assurance function or assurance services or attestation function has been defined in clause 2 of these guidelines. Clause 2 of these guidelines, which says that assurance engagement are the engagement that defined in the framework for defined in the framework for assurance engagement okay, issued by ICI and as amended from time to time, okay, in which a practitioner expresses a conclusion, okay, a practitioner expresses a conclusion. Now, conclusion for what? Now, this conclusion, like related to what? So, this conclusion designed to enhance the degree of confidence of the intended user okay, intended user other than the the responsible party. Okay, now again my next question is, enhance the degree of confidence about what? About what? Confidence for which thing? So the confidence for about the outcome, confidence about the outcome of the evaluation. Okay, or measurement of a subject matter. So when I talk about the outcome and or of the evaluation or measurement, when I talk about evaluation, evaluation is done in comparison to, or measurement is done with compared to something. Okay, so there are, in this case, when I do a evaluation or measurement, that should be something, with compared to. So there should be against a criteria that should be done against criteria. So just to summarize again, assurance services or engagement are engagement in which a practitioner expresses a conclusion, now conclusion regarding, or is designed to enhance the degree of the confidence of the intended user. And when I say confidence, so confidence about the outcome of the evaluation or measurement of a subject matter. Let's say, for example, when I call about subject matter, let's say my subject matter is financial statements. And when I say evaluation of that subject matter, so evaluation against criteria. Okay. Now, what could be the criteria for evaluation? Financial statement framework like accounting standard or NDS. Okay. Uh, so financial reporting framework, rules, regulations, laws, whatever it is applicable to that particular thing. So that can be a criteria. So for against those criteria, I will evaluate my subject matter, that is the financial statement, whether that is appropriate or not, and that is the outcome which I give in the form of audit report. Okay, to the intended users. In my case, intended users can be, members of the company, to enhance the degree of confidence. Okay, in our case, when I talk about enhance the degree of confidence, I'm talking about I provide them that, okay, this is free from material misstatement, and gives true and fair view. Remember, when I prepare an audit report, or when I talk about, my opinion in an audit of a financial statement, I talk about that these financial statements are free from material misstatement and give a true and fair view in confirmation with respect to the accounting standards or whatsoever. So this particular free from material misstatement and give a true and fair view is nothing but a conclusion that I am giving to enhance the degree of confidence. This is the conclusion I'm providing in my audit report, which increases the confidence of the members of the company that the outcome, like, whatever outcome, my conclusion, opinion, can be basis qualified opinion, unmodified opinion, whatever opinion it is. My opinion on the subject matter, that is the financial statement, has been evaluated against a criteria. Evaluation means do what I do as an audit. Against a criteria means financial reporting framework or financial statement framework, rules, laws, and regulations. So that is something my assurance engagement. I hope I'm clear. What do you mean by assurance engagement? How the definition of assurance engagement is there? But again, assurance engagement will not include. So there are exceptions to the assurance engagement. These following items will not be part of my assurance engagement. That is management consultancy service, then representation before various authorities, Then engagement to prepare tax returns or advising clients in taxation matters. Then engagement for compilation of financial statements. Okay. Then engagement to solely assist the client in preparing, compiling, collating other information other than financial statement. So I'm helping the client in preparing or you can say compiling other information other than FS. Then engagement for due diligence. Again, testifying as an expert witness. Providing expert opinion. Okay, and any other service which is not prescribed for assurance services. Any other services not prescribed by council. Okay. So that is the definition of assurance services under clause 2.2 of the guidelines. Okay. Now there is a new concept of new unit that we need to understand. New unit as defined under clause 212 of the guidelines. Okay. Now what is new unit? New unit means a firm whose date of establishment is less than 12 months. So it is newly incorporated, you can say. Whose date of incorporation or establishment is less than 12 months. Now that is required to be counted preceding the date of receipt of application for peer review. Okay. And that firm may or may not have rendered any assurance service. Or so. And may or may not have rendered any assurance service during the said period. This is the one definition. Or any practicing unit, practice unit basically, which is in existence for more than 12 months. So existence more than 12 months. Okay, it's not newly formed, but that firm is not rendering any assurance services. This is a new concept. Again, new unit means a firm which has been established less than 12 months ago, may or may not be providing assurance service, or a firm which has been established like before 12 months, but it is not rendering any assurance service. So those units will be called as a new unit. Any doubt? Okay. So there is one question. Why so much exceptions from assurance service, or on what basis these services are excluded from peer review? See, under these one, do you provide any assurance, kind of assurance? Simple management consultancy service. Do you provide any kind of assurance to anyone? Tax preparation. We do not provide any kind of assurance in all these services. If we do not provide any kind of assurance in all these services, first of all, I cannot classify these as an assurance service. So the purpose of removing these services from my bucket list is because I am not providing any kind of assurance. Basically, testifying as an expert witness, am I providing any assurance? Compilation of a FS, tax return preparation. So in these cases, I'm not providing any kind of assurance, and that's why. And the last one, other services not prescribed by council, means other services which are not included or not prescribed by council as an assurance service. So other services not prescribed by council under assurance service, that will automatically become out of the bucket of assurance service, because it has been not prescribed. I'll come on the number of units to be covered under the peer review. Everything I'll come in a while. Okay. So this was the definition of new unit. Okay. For the reviewer, there is a guidelines given. I'll explain in a while who can be a reviewer, who can be a qualified assistant. Everything I'll come in a minute. Okay. So that is assurance service and my new unit. Now, as I explained earlier about the peer review, okay, so there are certain objectives of the peer review. So peer review is based on the principle of systematic monitoring of the procedures that are adopted by the entity or records maintained by the practicing unit, basically, to carry out the assurance and audit services. And that is primarily, to detect and identify or direct it towards ensuring the quality of the audit and assurance service. So I'm I'll be focusing very much on the quality thing. Identify and to help practice unit to maintain the quality. It is not for the point of view that let's take any corrective actions or against for the practice unit. So when I talk about peer review, it's something not to find deficiencies but to enhance the quality. Remember that. Peer review, when I talk about, it's not to find the deficiencies but to enhance the quality. And because of that, there are two major objectives that have been prescribed for the peer review. So there are two objectives that are prescribed for the peer review. One, under peer review, the main objective is to ensure, ensure that in carrying out the assurance engagement, the practicing unit or member of institute should comply with technical, professional, and ethical standards plus regulatory requirements, including my audit quality maturity model. Second, that the practicing unit should have in place. Now, what should I have in place? Proper system, including documentation, thereof, proper system to demonstrate the quality of assurance service. These are the two objectives of my peer review. Now, peer review process is applicable to all the assurance engagement signed by the practicing unit during the period of review. So once a practice unit is subject to a peer review, its assurance engagements or records pertaining to the peer review period shall be subject to examination, and that will be included in peer review. Now, if a practice unit has more than one branches at various locations, in India, then he may opt for any branches or any branch conducted by a covered by a branch peer reviewer. So the new concept here is that we can have a branch peer reviewer for a particular branch. Now, branch peer reviewer is a reviewer appointed to conduct peer review of a branch of a practice unit. Qualification, duties, and everything will be same as the reviewer. So the only difference is he will be appointed to conduct a peer review of a branch. Branch peer review will conduct peer review of branch and will submit his peer review report to the peer review of head office or the prime peer reviewer, basically, or I can say peer reviewer of HO. Now, the HO shall consider the peer review report that is provided by branch while preparing his consolidated report. So he needs to, the peer reviewer of HO needs to consider this report. Clear? Any doubt? Any doubt? Okay. So basically what happens is, in peer review, the peer reviewer is required to, okay, cover a few areas. Basically, these few areas, are critical one to understand, because these are in line with my requirements of professional ethical TPE, that I call it technical professional and ethical standards. Okay. Also, these requirements are good to understand, so that we can, as a peer reviewer, it becomes what you can say, critical to evaluate these areas. Let me explain you these areas, that which are the peer areas that peer reviewer needs to cover. Under the peer review, basically. Okay. Now, peer reviewer shall cover compliance with TPE, technical professional ethical standards, quality of reporting, systems, procedures for carrying out assurance services. He needs to cover this one. This basically is a new amendment, you can say, which is included. Self-evaluation under the audit quality maturity model or any other guidelines issued by the Center for Audit Quality. Okay, that is something newly added. Then what he needs to cover is training program for staff, including article and audit assistant, concerned with the assurance functions, including availability of the appropriate infrastructure, compliance with the directions, okay, or guidelines issued by council to its members, including fees to be charged, number of audits to be undertaken, register for assurance engagement conducted during the year, and such other related records. Then what he needs to review is compliance with the directions, guidelines issued by the council in relation to article assistant, audit assistant, attendance registered, work diaries, stipends, and such other related records. So he needs to review all these areas in order to, conduct a peer review. So there's a question that whether branch peer reviewer has the same power of the HO reviewer. Answer is yes. There is no difference between the powers of the branch peer reviewer and the HO peer reviewer. So that is the areas that the peer reviewer is need to consider while performing a peer review. Very important. And why I say very important reason, because this is critical to understand not only the standards we are covering, but the training programs, compliance with the direction, and compliance with the guidelines issued by the council are also covered as a part of my peer review. Okay. Then, with respect to the peer reviewer, okay. Now, as I said, peer review is mandatory for all, uh, and peer review can be, mandated by for the practice unit as may be decided by the council. So it is, on council to decide the mandatory requirement for the peer review. So in that case, how the peer review works? Earlier, the peer review was based on the level of entity, level 1, level 2, level 3 of the entity. Okay. Now, and that level were decided based on some requirements, some what you can say, how many audit engagements we have taken, how many the assignments we have. So on the basis of that, level 1, level 2, level 3 was decided. That level 1 practice units once in 3 years, level 2 practice unit once in 4 years. So that was an earlier concept. Now it is not like that. Now, peer review is a mandatory requirement, okay, prior to performing some engagement. So, as per the notification which was issued by the council after various discussions, so with respect to the peer review, so based on the the notification that was issued by the council for the phased rollout of peer review mandate, that was on 9th November, also on 11th April 2022. Under that phased rollout mandate, that was known as the phased rollout mandate, it was proposed that this mandate will be applicable from 1st April 2022. First of all, number two, to have a peer review certificate will be a prerequisite to deliver these kind of assurance engagement. So now, peer review certificate is a prerequisite for such prescribed assignments or assurance engagements. Now, when I say such prescribed assurance engagements, these are the ones which are below specified, but I'll come in a minute. But now understand, if I want to take a assurance engagement, which is in the list of prescribed assurance engagement, peer review certificate is a prerequisite for me. Then only I can accept that engagement. So let us go through one by one, and they have provided the date for the mandate. Like these provisions will be applicable, like provision for having a prerequisite certificate will be applicable from these dates. So first, practice units which are proposed to undertake statutory audit of enterprise whose equity or debt securities are listed in India or abroad, okay, defined under SEBI LODR regulations. For these practice units, there is a prerequisite of having a peer review certificate, and that is with effect from 1st April 2021. So I cannot accept any engagement of statutory audit of an enterprise whose equity or debt securities are listed unless I don't have a peer review certificate. Okay. Second, if I want to consider, if I want to undertake statutory audit of unlisted public company having paid up capital 500 CR, turnover 1000 CR, or outstanding loans including debentures, deposit more than 500 CR, then I need to have a peer review certificate, and that is applicable from 1st April 2023. So each and every unit which might not be earlier covered under the peer review, okay, might not be covered under the peer review. Now, if you are, performing or undertaking an statutory audit of unlisted public company, wherein paid up capital greater than 500 CR, my turnover greater than 1000 CR, and debt again greater than 500 CR, then I need to have a peer review certificate. Or if a practicing unit is rendering attestation services or audit services, audit functions, all are same, having five or more partners, for them, prerequisite of having a peer review certificate is there. So if I have a 5 or more partners, mandatory I should have a peer review certificate, and that is applicable from 1st April 2023. So each and every firm from 1st April 2023 who has a 5 partners or more is required to have a peer review certificate. Okay. Then practice unit, which proposes to undertake statutory audits of entities which have raised funds from public or banks over 50 CR. So if they have raised funds from public or bank over 50 CR, okay, during the period under review of any, or anybody or any corporate, anybody corporate, including trust, which are covered under public interest entities, those are required to have a peer review certificate. If I'm taking an audit of entities, either they have taken raised funds from the public over 50 CR, or they are public interest entities, PIE. So those will be covered under, they should have a peer review certificate from 1st April 2024. If I am a practice unit performing audit or undertaking audit of these entities, I should have a peer review certificate. Or practice unit rendering attestation service having 4 or more partners. Then practice unit which proposes to undertake audit of branch of public sector banks. Okay, they should have a peer review certificate that is applicable from 1st April 2025. Or I have a 3 or more partners, then peer review certificate is mandatory from 1st April 2025. So practice units needs to have a peer review certificate before undertaking all these assignments based on the dates of applicability. Okay, now that was a mandate. That has been rolled out, okay, through notifications. But any practice unit suo moto can apply for peer review if they want a peer review certificate. Let's say you want a peer review certificate, you do not fall under this category. Suo moto you can apply as a voluntarily. This is a mandatory, but voluntarily is also allowed. Or the third category is a special case. Special case is somewhere the board, based on the specific information received by the secretary, ICI, disciplinary directorate, or any other regulator, which in the opinion of the board requires a special peer review of the practice unit. Then they may conduct a special peer review of the practice unit for such periods as determined. So it can be, instead of requirement, I'll say criteria. So there are 3 types of criteria. One is the mandatory, that we saw peer review mandate. Voluntary, that is suo moto. We can apply for that, uh, practice peer review and special case. When board on specific information received from any authority may require a peer review of that particular practice unit. So these are the three criteria for the peer review: mandatory, voluntary, and special case. Earlier, the peer review was based on the level 1, level 2 entity. Now it is not there. Now, uh, as I said, new unit can also apply for the peer review, and new unit criteria is there. So this is the criteria as of now issued by board for the peer review for selection of practice unit. And from time to time, any other such criteria can be issued. So that may, the board may deem fit for the peer review. Then, with respect to now, before that, any doubt till this particular point, any doubt that whatever we have discussed. When I talk about board is a peer review board. When I see, okay, when I talk about board, okay, that means it's a peer review board, okay, or board appointed by council. Okay. Then, when I say council, it's a council of ICAI. Institute means ICAI that I will be using. Okay. And peer review board is a board that is constituted under this particular, peer review guidelines. So that is how it is, used over here. Saksham, your question is a bit unclear. Can you rewrite it again? Okay, so there was a question that who issued the audit quality maturity model? So when I talk about center, that is a center for audit quality. So the center for audit quality, they have issued this particular model. So there's a center for audit quality directorate who issued this particular model. Okay. And they have provided additional resources on this particular AQMM. So I'll be covering that to whom that is applicable and how this is there. I'll show you a glimpse of that. Any other doubts? So there is one question: what is peer review? I detailed covered in the start of this particular lecture what is peer review. I explained the terms. I suggest go back and you can see in the start of the lecture that will be available. That what is a basically peer review? I explained in detail, taking 30-45 minutes to explain that. Yes, a new unit can apply suo moto for the peer review that is there. They can apply. Okay. Now, next part is procedure. Procedure for peer review. There has been a change. In this, there is a change, and I'll be explaining the change. This is a major change for in case of peer review. Okay. Now, earlier, the practice units were selected by either board or council. In now current case, it's the unit which desires to get peer review needs to apply. So the onus to get peer reviewed has been shifted from board to the particular unit. Okay, the unit who wants a peer reviewed, who wants to get themselves peer reviewed, they need to apply to the board. Okay, they need to apply to the board. Earlier it was, the units were selected by board, and if someone missed, they can apply to the board for peer review. But now it has been on the unit that they need to make sure that they are peer reviewed. So how it is that peer practice unit desire to get peer reviewed, or who wants to get peer reviewed, they need to make an application for peer review. Okay, they need to make an application for the peer review, and they need to submit the application to board. Okay, now this application is required to be in form 1, that is application cum questionnaire. Application cum questionnaire. So practice unit desire to get peer reviewed, they need to file application for the peer review to board in form 1. Once board receives the form 1, okay, what board will do is, board will suggest three names of reviewer, will suggest 3 reviewers. Okay, to practice unit. Board will suggest 3 reviewers to practice unit. Okay, and board will ask practice unit to select anyone from the 3 reviewers. Board will suggest 3 reviewers, and that will be done in 3 working days. From date of receipt of form 1. So within 3 working days, board will suggest 3 reviewers to the practice unit to select anyone. Okay. Out of these 3 recommendations that will be given to the board, now practice unit shall select 1 out of the 3 recommendations and intimate to the board within a day. They need to submit 1 out of 3 recommendations, and they need to intimate to the board within 1 working day. Select 1 out of 3 recommendations. Okay, and they need to provide this one selection within 1 working day. Within 1 working day, okay, from the receipt of names. Then the selected reviewer by the practice unit, okay, will be intimated by the board. Will be intimated by the board, and the reviewer that is intimated or selected by the practice unit needs to submit something. Okay, I'll explain that. So board will intimate that peer reviewer about his selection, and the board will ask reviewer to submit a declaration of confidentiality in form 2. Okay, declaration of confidentiality in form 2. Okay, and that is required to be done within 2 working days. Within 2 working days from the receipt of choice of name of the reviewer from practice unit. So the reviewer has to provide this declaration within 2 working days. Okay. First, the practice unit will file form 1. Board will give 3 names. We need to select, practice unit need to select 1 name. Okay. Then that 1 name will be taken by board, and he will intimate that peer reviewer that you have been selected. Then that reviewer will file form 2, declaration of confidentiality, within 2 working days. Okay. And then practice unit is also required to provide a copy of form 1, okay, which was submitted to the board, to the reviewer within 2 working days. So this form 1 that is we filed over here, this form 1 is required to be given this form 1 is required to be given to the practice unit, to the peer reviewer, basically within 2 working days from his selection. Okay, within 2 working days from the date of appointment. Clear till now? Any doubt? Any doubt? Yes, this is applicable for May 2023. So the reviewers are selected randomly from the pool, but there is a empanelment of the peer reviewers, and from them 3 are selected. No, there is no option for a reviewer to select practice units. The option is given to the practice unit to select a reviewer. So practice units need to send the form 1 to the reviewer within 2 working days from the date of appointment. So form 1 to be given to reviewer by practice unit. Doubt? So that was the first part of the peer review process or procedure. That is till the time of selection of the reviewer. Now the second part is, now there will be communication between peer reviewer and the practice unit. Just a minute. Give me a minute, sorry. Yeah. I think there is some issue. Just give me a minute. Okay. Yep. So now the next steps or next procedure is, once a peer review is selected, he has received the form 1. Then what he needs to do is, peer review needs to propose the visit. The date of visit. Okay. And the samples required to be reviewed. So he needs to propose the date of visit and the samples he intends to review. So he will provide the samples and the date to the practice unit. Okay. The samples then are kept to be ready by the practice unit. Now this sample selection is required to be given in form 5. Okay. So sample selected will be intimated in form 5. Okay. Then after this, after sharing the form 5 by the peer reviewer to the practice unit, The reviewer can seek additional information which is not furnished by the practice unit, or which is, the reviewer thinks that he needs with respect to the, practice unit, uh, which was not there in form 1, that is, application come questionnaire. So he can go and he can seek additional information. And that request for the additional information is required to be given in form 6. Okay. And the practice units need to provide this information within 1 working day. Okay. So he needs to provide within 1 working day to the reviewer that additional information. I'll come on the sample selection also, how the samples are selected, on what basis the samples are selected. I'll come on the fees also. So date of appointment means date when the peer reviewer has given his consent, okay, and filed the form or declaration of confidentiality. So if he has filed the declaration of confidentiality, that will be taken date of appointment. Any other doubts? Any doubts? Okay. I'll come on the peer review. Usually peer review period is for the 3 years preceding the year in which the application has been made. I'll explain that. See, I'll explain the procedure again. So practice unit who is desire to get peer reviewed will find form 1 application questionnaire, and he will give to the board. Board will suggest 3 reviewers within 3 working days from the date of receipt of form 1. Then the peer reviewer needs to select 1 out of 3 from within 1 working day from the date of receipt of names. Then the board will intimate that to that peer reviewer that you have been selected, and board will ask that peer reviewer to submit form 2, that is declaration of confidentiality, and peer reviewer needs to submit that form within 2 working days from the selection by the practice unit, or from 2 working days from the date of intimation. Okay, the date when he will be intimated, okay, now you have been selected. Plus the practice unit is required to give the copy of form 1 to the reviewer within 2 working days from the date of intimation. Now, what is the date of appointment or intimation in this case? That's the declaration that is filed by the peer reviewer in form 2. So once the peer reviewer files form 2, then the practice unit will provide him copy of form 1 within 2 working days. Clear? Any doubt? Now, any doubt? Form 2 is filed with board. So all these forms are filed with board. These forms are not filed with the practice unit or reviewers. These are filed with the board. Only form 1 is, that is, is filed uh, with board, and a copy is also given to the peer reviewer. So a copy is given to the peer reviewer of the form that is filed with the board. Okay. Let's do one thing. Let's take a quick 10-minute break, and after break, we'll gather back and we'll see rest of the peer review procedure with some examples. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So today, uh, now we are going to cover the rest of the part for the peer review. Okay. So till now we saw first part for the peer review, wherein application is sent, form one, form two. Now we'll see the second part of the peer review, where the samples are selected, and post selection of the samples, what happens is, the reviewers, if required, send additional information. That is, reviewer says that okay, I need some additional information. That additional information is required by the reviewer, and that request is raised in form 6. Okay, and within a day, within a day, the practicing unit needs to provide the detail to the reviewer. Okay. So till now, that is the point we discussed. Now, moving ahead. After this, what happens is, once the samples are selected, reviewer finalize the dates and when he will go, when he will perform the review with the reviewer, and he coordinate everything with respect to the peer review. And he then discuss, okay, these are the samples, these are the things that he will be selecting, and every detail he discussed with the practicing unit peer reviewer. Okay. Then the reviewer is required, okay, is required to select the assurance engagement that he would like to review in the form 5, and he's like to he is required to report to the practicing unit the form 5 within 2 working days of receiving the information. Now when I say information, that is the form 1. So this form 5 is required to be issued within 2 working days. Okay, from receiving the info from practicing unit. So once practicing units provides the information to the reviewer needs to select the sample in form 5 within 2 working days. Okay, now coming to the sample selection criteria. On what basis the samples are selected? So there are multiple criteria. There is no standard sample guideline given, but there is a criteria based guideline given for the selection of sample. That is, the number of samples or number of assurance engagement are to be selected based on standard of quality control, okay, prevailing in pre-U. Then size and nature of assurance engagement. Methodology adopted by practicing unit in providing assurance service. Number of partners, members involved in practicing unit. Then number of locations or branch. Fees to be charged or fees charged by practicing unit. Okay, so all these are the criteria that are required to be taken care of while selecting a sample. So there is one question: is there any peer review for non-assurance engagement? No, as of now, it's for the this one assurance engagement. We'll see how quality review adds on the relative things on the same area. So that we will be discussing in the quality review lecture. Okay. Now we saw the sample selection and additional information that is required. Okay. The peer reviewer needs to provide at least 2 working days. Okay. He needs to provide at least 2 working days to keep ready all the samples and data. The required, or I can say the required records. Okay, so at least he needs to provide 2 working days to keep the sample and data ready. Okay, then the sample size, as I told you, depends upon the selection criteria. Now, on-site review by the peer reviewer should not extend beyond 6 working days. Should not extend beyond 6 working days. Okay, so I need to complete on-site review within 6 working days. Okay, and now I'll talk about the methodology for peer review. How peer review is conducted. So that's for the procedural part. Now I'll talk about the methodology part. Okay. So under the methodology, in peer review, there are 2 types of review are required to be carried. One is a compliance review. Okay. One is a substantive approach for the review. Now, in compliance review, generally what happens is the general controls for evaluating the degree of reliance to be placed upon the some activities of the entity is reviewed. So compliance approach is to assess whether the proper controls and procedures have been established or followed by the practice unit. Okay, that is to ensure that the assurance services are being performed in accordance with the technical, professional, ethical standards. So here we assess whether the proper controls and procedures, okay, have been established or followed by practice unit to ensure the quality of the assurance service. Now, when I talk about controls and procedures, so around which area? Around which area I'm talking about? So areas where we check for the controls and procedures can be or not. It's not an exhaustive list, but can include independence related, then maintenance of profession skills and standards, control regarding outside consultations and procedures with respect to outside consultation, then with respect to staff equipments, okay, supervision, staff supervision, then development, staff development related things, then comes office administration. So I'll evaluate the controls around these areas, procedures around these areas to ensure that whether these services, whether like assurance services are being performed in accordance with the technical professional standards. Okay. Along with that, what I can do is I can verify assurance service records. Okay. I can review and evaluate system of internal controls. I can perform substantive tests, that is will be covered in my substantive approach. I will see some areas related to financial statement preparation and disclosures. I'll see assurance service conclusions. I can, see assurance service reporting. In order to have a, view upon the compliance approach. In substantive approach, what I will do? In substantive approach, for the assurance engagement or assurance engagements, samples, I will perform the testing, okay, of working papers, testing of working papers in order to establish and the extent of compliance, whether assurance work has been carried out by the technical professional standards or not. So that is the thing I will do in compliance or in substantive approach. So these two methodology I can adopt. So yeah, independence with regard to what? So here independence with regard to your independence requirement. So your independence requirement which are enumerated in your standards, in your framework, okay, with respect to that what is the policy that the firm is adopting with respect to the independence? How they ensure that before starting any of the engagement, assurance engagement, that they are independent. So all those things, the policies, procedures around the independence is very important and plays a key factor with respect to compliance review. Okay. Now, the peer review procedure with respect to testing was this. Peer review procedure with respect to appointment we discussed. Now, just to highlight, I want to highlight one change over here for the new units. Okay. For the new units, everything is same. The reviewer has to submit, the details. The practicing unit has to file form 1. Everything is same. But the only difference is when I talk about the procedures, testing procedures for the new unit, the on-site review for the practice unit shall be restricted to 1 day. So 1 working day in case of new unit. So if it is a new unit, then 1 working day. Otherwise, it should not exceed beyond 6 working days for the normal. Now, the third part of the peer review procedure is reporting. Reporting by the peer reviewer. Okay. Now, after completing the peer review, the peer reviewer shall submit peer review report to board. After peer review, peer reviewer, I'll use PR as of now. Peer reviewer shall submit the report to board. Okay. Now, when I talk about submit report to board, that is in form 9. The report of peer review. Then a copy is also required to be given to practicing unit. Of this particular report. Okay. Now this report should contain the opinion of the peer reviewer. Okay. Now there can be 2 scenarios. Either the opinion is modified, either the opinion is not modified, unmodified. So let's consider both. First, I'll talk about modified opinion in peer review report. If that is a modified opinion in peer review report, what is the procedure? If that is a modified opinion with respect to any matter noticed by the peer reviewer, then he is required to communicate his findings to the practice unit in a preliminary report first. So the peer reviewer shall submit his findings to practicing unit in preliminary report. Okay. Then practice unit within 2 days or the date of such findings, from the date of such reporting of such findings, is required to make submissions and representations to the peer reviewer. So practice unit will be given 2 days to submit the representations and replies by PU to peer reviewer. Okay. 2 working days will be there. Within 2 working days from receipt of findings. Okay. Then, if the reviewer is satisfied with the reply, he shall submit an unqualified peer review report. Or if he is not satisfied, he will submit a qualified peer review report. So, submission of qualified peer review report or submission of unqualified peer review report. This is if he is satisfied with the replies. If he is not satisfied with the replies. Okay. Peer reviewers, submission of the qualified report, submission of the unqualified report. Everything over here is required to be done in Form 9. So for both of the cases, Form 9 is required to be filed. Whether it's a qualified, unqualified, or whatever it is the case, Form 9 is required to be filed. Okay. Then peer reviewer is required to submit some additional things along with the peer review report in the Form 9. So what he is required to submit is, in both cases, basically, along with Form 9, he is required to submit annexure to the reports, copy of questionnaire as received from the practicing unit. So you can say copy of Form 1. Then list of samples selected, and the criteria with the that is prescribed by the board. So list of samples selected. Remember, I'll select sample in my Form 5. So I need to submit the Form 5 for list of samples selected. Preliminary report. That is required to be submitted to the PU in case of my modified opinion. Okay. Along with replies received from PU, practicing unit. So all these details I'm required to submit along with my Form 9. Okay. Now, the entire process from appointment, testing to the reporting. The entire process from the appointment, testing, and to the reporting. And basically, if I just remove the appointment side, because the time limit which is given is from the receipt of application. But again, the entire process is required to be completed within 20 working days from the date of receipt of application from the practicing unit. So there are two timelines given, that is entire peer review process within 20 working days. Now this 20 working days is required to be calculated either from date of receipt of application, date of receipt of application from PU, or from date of notifying the practice unit about its selection. Now the second criteria, second date, is applicable in the case of special review. Remember, the peer review criteria, mandatory, voluntary, and special case. So the second criteria is applicable in special cases. So this is for special case, where the PU is informed or notified that you will be now, selected for the peer review, or you are being selected for the peer review. Now, this is for the normal practicing unit, but for the new practicing unit, for new unit, the entire review process is required to be completed within 7 working days. Will be 7 working days. If it is a new unit, then 7 working days, otherwise within 20 working days. So that is the whole procedure of the peer review. All the communications are made with the board on their emails. Okay. Then there are some additional things that are required to be considered. That is Form 7 in case of extension. So if any extension is required to be, needed, then Form 7 is required to be filed. Okay, so this particular portion is pending. Unmodified opinion. In peer review report. If it is unmodified opinion, then nothing, it's directly falls under to this particular bucket, satisfied, submission of unqualified peer review report, and that's done. Any doubt till now? Any doubt? Okay. Now the peer review certificate that is issued after peer review. Okay. The peer review certificate which is issued after peer review is valid for 3 years or such period as may be decided. Validity of peer review certificate. Okay. So the validity of the peer review certificate is 3 years or such other period as may be prescribed. Then duplicate peer review certificates can be issued and can be applied for. That is for the peer review. Now the next area is peer review board. Before I go to the peer review board, I'll suggest let's take some questions to understand the peer review. Or just a minute. Before going to the board, let's take one question, one or two questions, so that we are clear about the topic and we can then easily move forward to the next topic. Just a minute. Okay. Let's see one MCQ. Good one. Mr. Q, a peer reviewer for ABC and Company for the period under review starting from 1718 to 1920, decided to select 5 samples for audit engagement for the review. All samples were appropriate and no deviations or issues were identified. Post that, Mr. Q reviewed the training and development program for the staff, article assistant, auditor assistant, and they found that the training and development program were not appropriate and outdated. The staff, article assistant, and audit assistant placed on the audits were not trained related to the specific matters of the industries from which the audit client belonged. As a result, the peer reviewer included a comment in the preliminary report regarding the training program of the staff concerned with the assurance functions, including the availability of the appropriate infrastructure. Upon receiving such preliminary report, the practice unit raised concern that the peer review is going out of the scope of the preliminary report. Okay. Now you need to provide whether the contention of the practice unit is correct or not by selecting the appropriate option. So a peer review was conducted. Then he gave a comment in the preliminary report. Now the practice unit saying is your report, your preliminary comment in the preliminary report is out of scope. You need to clarify whether the practice unit is correct or not. So you need to select one of the options from the below. Pretty easy. Nothing difficult here. Come on, guys. So you need to select one option from the below to identify, to provide whether the contention of the practice unit is correct or not. Trust me, we have discussed this one. It's somewhere into the area related to the objectives of the peer review, and areas need to be covered. So if you see objectives of the peer review and areas need to be covered, this is there. Okay, I received some answers. So correct Boni, correct Manini, correct Nina, good Aniket, correct, correct Kaushiki. Yep. So if I'll go back to the particular provision that we are discussing over here, areas to be reviewed. In that, it's there. One of the area is the training program for staff, including article and audit assistant, concerned with the assurance function, including availability of the appropriate infrastructure. So in our case, yes, this is one of the area that is required to be covered in the peer review, and the comment in the preliminary report is appropriate, and hence the contention of practice unit is not correct. Reason because the comment on the training program is appropriate. Okay, I hope I'm clear. So appropriately correct. Yes. A will not occur because practice unit's contention is incorrect. B, on the same line, like practice unit's contention is incorrect. C is there. This is the correct option. But D, if you see the scope of peer review, it decided by the practice unit and peer reviewer. That is incorrect. Correct option. Then let me have one more. Just a minute. Let me bring one more question. Okay. So one more good question. Mr. Q, a peer reviewer for the firm ABC and Company for the period under review starting from 1718 to 1920, decided to select 5 samples for the audit engagement for the review. Out of the 5 selected samples, Mr. Q identified that in the 3 samples, appropriate audit procedures were not followed to validate the completeness assertion. Upon inquiry with the signing partner of ABC and Company, the partner responded that the items were considered immaterial and less exposed to risk under risk assessment done by them, and hence the said audit procedure was not performed. However, upon detailed review, it was identified that the balances of those items were appropriate, where the appropriate audit procedures were not followed, were material. So earlier they were saying that it's not material. Okay, but later on it was identified that the balances were material, and procedures were not followed to validate the completeness assertions. Okay. In his preliminary report, the reviewer provided the qualification comments with respect to the missing audit procedures and submitted the preliminary report to the practice unit for their response. Upon receiving the said report, the practice unit refrained themselves from providing any comments on the same on grounds that the peer review was not supposed to verify professional judgments and that is out of scope of the peer review. So you need to guide with respect to the contention of the practice unit. So whether the contention of the practice unit is correct or not. Whether the contention of the practice unit is correct or not. Correct. Correct, Kaushiki. Correct, Sharendra. No, Manini. Correct, Boni. Okay. So in this case also, the contention of the practice unit is not correct. Reason because simple. When we are doing a peer review, the audit procedures, remember our areas in scope, what we are required to check. First of all, compliance with the technical, professional, and ethical standards. And when I talk about technical, professional, and ethical standard, one such standard, one such area is engagement and quality control standards, which talks about my audit procedures. Okay. Standards on auditing. Okay. It talks about my audit procedures. So area for the peer review covers the area for the, the audit procedures that I have applied. So in this case, the contention of the practice unit is not correct. Now, my second question here is, in how many days? In how many days PU is required to submit his response to peer reviewer? Okay. In how many days PU is required to submit his response to peer reviewer? The extension of this question, basically, in how many days the practice unit is required to submit? Correct, Kaushiki. Correct, Manini. Correct, Aniket. Correct, Boni. Correct, Shailendra. So, okay. Now, at times when we are writing an exam, we need to make sure that we write the appropriate words. So when I talk about the deadline, we need to write within 2 working days from the date of preliminary report or from the date of uh, receipt of findings. From the date of receipt of findings. See, 2 working days and 2 days, they both are different. If I'll write 2 days, then that is an incorrect answer, because 2 working days is different than the 2 days. And even if I write only 2 working days, it's also not correct. I need to write within 2 working days from the date of receipt of the findings. So there is one question that the objective of peer review is not to find deficiencies, but to enhance the quality. See, in the above case also, it is not to find deficiencies. When I say not to find deficiencies, means that okay, there has been a miss in the validation of completeness assertions. We are not going to punish the entity for missing out this particular thing, but this exercise is done to identify where the practice unit can improve their audit quality. So it is not like that on the basis of that we'll initiate any what you can say disciplinary proceedings. That's why it says that it is not to identify deficiencies, because this will not go for initiation of disciplinary proceedings. But on the same time, this is reported so that the practice unit can improve his quality. Clear? Now, one more question I just want to cover. Simple, pretty easy question. There's nothing difficult in this. It will enhance on the term of the assurance engagement. So the following samples were selected by the peer reviewer for the purpose of peer review for practice units. So he selected these 5 samples. Now the PU had an opinion that the practice unit had an opinion that the samples selected by the peer reviewer are incorrect. Kindly guide the peer reviewer. So you tell me which are the samples out of this are correct and which are not correct and why. So you need to tell me the correct and incorrect samples and why. Read with reason. Okay, Manni. Which are correct and which are not, along with the reasons. Correct, Boni. Correct, Kaushiki. Come on, guys. Pretty simple. There is nothing difficult in this. We have seen this in, discussed in detail also. Okay. Okay, Aniket. Okay, let me tell you. See, 1 and 2 are audits. So for sure, that's an assurance engagement. These two are assurance engagements. Number 3, number 4, and number 5. Number 3, it's application for tax residency certificate. This is not an assurance engagement. It's like, filing for the tax return. How, in which way over here are you giving any comfort, conclusion, or opinion? There is no opinion for application of tax residency certificate. This is not an assurance engagement. Implementation of Ind AS. Now, implementation of Ind AS, if you go to the assurance engagement, okay, it says that specifically, okay, that any sort of management consultancy service is not part of this particular, assurance engagement. Now, implementation of Ind AS, guiding on management with respect to, some of the new standards, they fall under the management consultancy service. So this will again not be form part of assurance engagement. And the last one, advice on tax treaty. Again, it's not an assurance engagement. We are advising someone, but we are not issuing an opinion. So all of these three are not assurance engagement. So the correct answer is 1 and 2, not 3, 4, 5. Any doubts? Any doubts? Okay. Now, the next important point I want to cover is a peer reviewer. Okay. So there are some eligibilities and criteria given for the peer reviewer to be a peer reviewer. So let us see those eligibility. Eligibility of the peer reviewer is defined under clause 26 of the guidelines. Okay. Then there are certain other things also we will cover with respect to the eligibility, but major is the clause 26. So to be a peer reviewer, you need to be a member in practice. First of all, you need to be member in practice. Okay. And then you should have at least 7 years of experience, 7 years of assurance practice experience. Okay. Or if you were employed earlier, now you are into practice. Earlier you were member in employment. So if member in employment, Okay. Now, member in practice. So earlier you were in employment, now you are in practice. Okay. For them, at least 10 years of experience in employment plus 3 years of audit experience in practice. Okay. So first of all, he should be member in practice. If he was in employment, now member in practice. So at least 10 years of uh, experience in employment plus 3 years of audit experience. So, or otherwise, if he was in practice since day one, then at least 7 years of assurance practice. Second condition, if a member, okay, uh, if a member is, which is eligible to be appointed as a reviewer of practice unit, if member in practice will not be eligible if any disciplinary action is or proceedings is pending against him. He has been found guilty of professional or other misconduct. He has been convicted by a competent court. By a competent court, okay, within or outside India for an offense involving moral turpitude and punishable with fine. With sorry, and punishable with imprisonment. So if he's convicted by court with punishable with and punishable with imprisonment, then he will not be eligible. Now see, there is one thing. When I start like eligibility and the disqualification in each of the cases, I mentioned member in practice. So whatever eligibility is required to be a member in practice will indirectly applicable for your peer reviewer also. Remember, in professional ethics, we talked about who can be basically member in practice, who are applicable or who are not. Remember for that? So we discussed about the eligibility for being, admitted to the member, disqualified to be member, Section 8. Remember, these people are not, these people are disqualified to be members. Then we discussed with respect to, removal of name from the members who are not, eligible to be a member, deemed to be in practice. So everything we discuss, who can be, called member in practice. So in professional ethics, we discussed in detail with respect to the member in practice. That will be applicable, and over and above that, this is applicable. So member in practice, their requirements plus 7 years, 10 years of experience or disqualifications. Now, the third requirement is a peer reviewer shall not accept any professional assignment from practicing unit for a period of 2 years from date of appointment, or he should have not he should have not accepted any professional assignment from practicing unit, okay, uh, for a period of 2 years prior to the date of appointment. So in past also, he should have not accepted in, prior 2 years from the date of appointment, he should have not accepted. If he have accepted any professional assignment from that practicing unit, then he will be disqualified or he will be not eligible for being appointed as an peer reviewer for that particular practicing unit, not for the all, but for that particular practicing unit. So the important is 2 years prior and 2 years after. He should not accept any assignment. Then a peer reviewer is not eligible for being appointed as a reviewer if he is in conflict of interest, okay, if he is in conflict of interest or has any obligation against practicing unit, then if he has undergone training slash articleship under any of the partner of practicing unit, or he was a partner of practicing unit. Okay. So if these are the conditions also, then also he will not be eligible for appointment. So member in practice will not be eligible if these conditions are fulfilled. Any doubt? So there is one question that employment in the industry is relevant for counting of your 10 years of experience. But in which type of company or industry, it's not relevant.
Recording stopped.
ठीक है. हाँ. Sorry, everyone. There was some technical difficulties. So, we'll continue where we were. So, I was discussing about with respect to the requirements of the peer reviewer, who are eligible to be a peer reviewer, and what are the eligibility criteria. Okay. Now, there are some questions that I need to take. So, one is conflict of interest point not clear. See, with respect to the conflict of interest point, what is the scenario is that, if particularly a member in practice who is appointed to be a peer reviewer for a practicing unit, if he is somehow interested in that particular practice unit, somehow, maybe let's say, for example, one of his relative is a partner or his spouse is a partner in that practice unit, or somehow he was connected to the practice unit, then there is a conflict of interest. So he should not be appointed for that particular practice unit, as a peer reviewer. Another area is that, let's say, for example, if he has taken any sort of, is indebtedness to the practice unit, or somehow he is related to the practice unit, then again the point conflict of interest point comes into the place. Now the second question is, articleship under past partners of the CA firm is not mentioned in the eligibility right. Okay, in eligibility. See, it is then that it's about the practicing unit, not the partner. So whatever we are doing is, we are doing for a practicing unit, the partner may change. For a practicing unit, that is fine. But if you are a part of that practicing unit, you went to a training, underwent an articleship, then that is there. So we will be counting practicing unit, not a particular, what you can say, partner, because partner can change in a practicing unit. Any further doubts? Any further doubts? Okay. If no further doubts, then let me take one more topic, means in continuation with this only. Okay. Now, along with this, like eligibility criteria of the peer reviewer, there is a process. If you want to get appointed as a peer reviewer, what you need to do? Okay. One, if you want to get appointed for the peer reviewer, you need to first of all pass and undergo a training with the with the board. So board has prescribed the training and a test that you need to undergo. So sorry, is required to undergo, okay, the training, and and he is required to pass the test, okay, that is prescribed by board to be a peer reviewer. Once he does that, then he's eligible to act as a peer reviewer, and then he needs to make an application for peer reviewer in form 3. In form 3, a peer reviewer application is required to be submitted to the board that okay, he wants to be he wants to be in uh, like get empaneled in the peer reviewers empanelment. Okay, once a reviewer is empaneled, once he is empaneled, then he shall remain in the panel for 3 years. Then he will be in panel for 3 years. Okay, from the date of peer reviewer test. Okay, and before 6 months, he needs to, if this 3 years is getting expired, then before 6 months he needs to undergo again a new test if he wants to get re-enrolled. So in case of re-enrollment, undergo fresh test before 6 months, and then you need to intimate again to the board in form 3, and you will be enrolled again for the next 3 years. Clear? Any doubt? Okay, so there is a question that the validity of the peer review certificate is 3 years, but restriction on accepting engagement is for 2 years. Uh, I'm just see restriction on the selection of restriction on this particular uh, engagements and everything is for 2 years. Reason because what happens is your peer review certificate has a higher validity. So what will happen is by the time from earlier peer review certificate, by the time you will be when you will take a new peer review certificate, this might have already triggered. So that's why it's have a shorter duration over here. Shailendra, can you rewrite your query with respect to the partners? I just want to understand further on that. Okay, so that was for the peer reviewer. Now there is one last point that was remaining. I need to cover it. That is peer review board. So I just quickly cover the peer review board. Okay, the constituent of the peer review board and the, what are the meetings requirements, everything. Okay, so with respect to the peer review board, the board is required to be consisting of minimum six members, maximum 12 members. They will be appointed by council, and more than 50% shall be from the member of council. So 50% or more shall be members from council. The council will appoint chairman and vice chairman from above members. So council will appoint. Okay. Now that is the constituent of my the board, peer review board. Next is the term for the peer review board. Okay, the term for the peer review board is defined by the members, term of the members. So the term of two-thirds members of the board, okay, shall be for 3 years. So every 3 years, two-thirds members shall be rotated, and new members should be elected. And like for two-thirds member, this is the case, or for a member, for any individual member, basically. For a member, the term will be the above one or the term in the council. Whichever is earlier. So, for example, a member from the council has been elected into the members of the board. Now I say, okay, two-thirds of the members shall have a term of 3 years. What if his term in the council itself is not more than 3 years? Let's say, for example, it's 1 year. So in that case, for that particular member, the term will be the 1 year. That is the term left in the council, not the 3 years. So you need to check whether it's 3 years or whatever it is, the term in the council. Chairman and vice chairman will have a term of 1 year. Will have a term of 1 year means they will not be actually removed from the board, but every year a new chairman and vice chairman is required to be selected. Okay. Then comes to the casual vacancy in the peer review board. Casual vacancy. Now, in casual vacancy will be filled by council, not by the board. Okay. So casual vacancy will be filled by the council, not by the board. Meetings of this particular board, that is at least one meeting every calendar quarter. Okay. At least one meeting every calendar quarter. So that is something with respect to the peer review board, the constitution, the term, the casual vacancy, and the meetings. Any doubt with respect to that? Yes, the chairman and the vice chairman are required to be selected by the council, but can be anyone. It's not necessary that they should be from council, but they can be anyone. But usually, if you see the wordings, it says that the council shall appoint the chairman and vice chairman to the board from amongst its elected member of the council. So generally, it represents that okay, they should be from the council rather than from the rest of the 50%. So you can say they should be from the council. No, peer review certificate is valid for 3 years. So after 3 years, the PU needs to again apply for the peer review. Yes, the chairman and vice chairman can be reappointed, but the appointment should happen every year. So they should change. Members can be reappointed. There is no cooling off period as of now. See, individual member term means, for example, a council member that has been appointed to the board. Now, I said that, okay, the term should be for two-third members, 3 years. Now, let's say for the two-third members, the term is 3 years, but the member that has been appointed to the board has a term left of 1 year in the council. Then, how can he be appointed for 3 years on the board when his term in the council is 1 year? So either it will be 3 years or the term remaining in the council, whichever is earlier, will be the term of that particular individual member. Any further doubt, guys? Any further doubts? Any further doubts? Okay. If no further doubts, then what we can do is we can keep the session till here. Okay. And in the next lecture, again, so if you see the next lecture has been updated on the will be of peer review only. So in the next lecture, we will be covering rest of the areas, of the peer review and the quality review. So in the next lecture, we will be covering the rest of the areas of peer review and the quality review. Okay. Okay. So if no further queries, then I'll propose to conclude the session. I'll see you in the next lecture. Thank you, guys.